Well, welcome to the podcast, everyone. And Matthew Blesso, thank you so much for being the first guinea pig to roll with me in this new domain.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Matthew, you're a serial entrepreneur with multiple ventures, including Blesso Properties, Shift Esperanza, and also some hospitality businesses in Panama. From our previous conversations, I understand that your early career, you started out your real estate journey in New York, purchasing one apartment, then another, selling the two of them, and purchasing your first apartment block, which gave you your taste for real estate development and subsequently went back to college and gained your master's in real estate development and went on to have a fantastic career, a great 20 years or so of just one successful project after another. And probably, I guess, from the outside looking in at that stage, had all the trappings of success, and yet there was something missing. Is that right?
You summed it up very well. Yep, that's true.
How do you feel at that point, I guess? What was going through your mind or keeping you up at night?
Well, I guess it was that I was always working towards something, and I think I grew up with a great deal of insecurity, uh, and for me, finding early success equaled safety. I was really trying to amass some level of wealth. And I graduated with college with nothing but student debt. I mean, I didn't, come from any real money. And I guess I viewed wealth as safety. And I also viewed it, and this is really my, for if you're inviting us to be vulnerable, I'll jump right in.
Great.
I had this sense that I was not able to attract a partner at that stage of my life if I didn't have money. And just to give you a sense of how I was, evaluating myself and lack of self-love. Um, the interesting thing is insecurity is a really great motivator. And so when you're feeling like the world is unsafe and and I was feeling like I'm unworthy, that's a really great motivator to succeed. And I worked really hard, and I just didn't. Failure was just never an option. It was just I was just head down, doing whatever I needed to do, and was willing to will the projects, the early projects I took on to success any way possible.
Yeah. And then and then something changed because I guess you achieved the success that you had been striving for. And what was the experience? What was that experience like of kind of coming to terms with the fact like, okay, I've done it now. I've achieved what I set out to achieve.
Yeah, I think achieving success definitely helped me to feel better about myself. And I've given a lot of thought toward this, and particularly when I'm sort of mentoring other people that are suffering from a lack of self-love and have this idea that, well, I just need to achieve this and then I'll feel good about myself. And I think maybe there is some truth to that, but there's also no substitute. The real cure to insecurity is learning to love yourself irrespective of what you've achieved.
Mm.
And so I guess for me it was both of those things that resulted in a turnaround of how I viewed myself and felt about myself. And so interestingly, as I started loving myself more and felt good about who I was, then that actually takes away the motivation. And and that really strong motivation I had that I couldn't fail, um, when you're doing a spiritual practice that includes things like I am not my success, I am this is what defines me,
Hmm.
then you've actually taken away a motivation to succeed in a way.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing because we all want to be motivated and we all want to succeed and we want to keep having that drive. Um, but for me, in my case, I felt like it came from an unhealthy place. And so I was a better person to not have that drive, even though strangely it did impact the level of success that I was experiencing.
As in, as you achieved success and that underlying drive driven by insecurity started to dry up, success was easier to, it was no longer as easy to come by, or
It was never easy. It was
right.
really hard. I guess probably a better way to put it is I wasn't able to suffer. I wasn't willing to suffer the same way I was in my younger years.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one piece of it. The other piece of it was I was always working towards something. So, to achieve I bought my first apartment when I was 1 year out of college. That was like an incredible achievement for me. Like I was like, for a little while I was like, I'm good, and and then I wanted to buy another one, and then I wanted to move to Manhattan to, where the real exciting stuff is happening, and own a piece of real estate in Manhattan. That became my goal. That was a
Yeah.
really inspiring goal for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing these projects. Then I wanted to have my own company. Okay, so I did that, and I left the banking world, opened an office. I started hiring more people, doing more projects, succeeding with more projects, getting more money. And the big turning point was I I bought a penthouse apartment in very prime area of Manhattan, and got renovated it. Did a lot of the design work myself, and had a lot of experience in design at this point, and really put in a lot of thought and creativity into it to make something that was truly special. And I designed it not just to be a place to live, but to be a showpiece for the capabilities of our company. And it was really well received. It was published on the front page of the New York Times House and Home section,
Wow.
and then after that, it was published, all around the world, and won a lot of design awards. And it was a massive home for just one person, to the extent that it felt actually a little wasteful for me. And I was calling myself a sustainable developer, and I had all of these sustainable features in the building, in the apartment, but at the same time, I couldn't lie to myself. And I realized, well, I'm kind of like not really walking the walk. Like, okay, so I have, a green wall, and I have recycled materials, but like the carbon footprint for one person is pretty big to have
Right.
such a, massive place just for myself.
Yeah.
And it was also like I was working towards that, and then I got it, and I really enjoyed it for a little while. But then I was so used to working towards something that I had this thought, like I was only living there for a few months, and this thought came into my head of like, oh wow, because this is like my fourth home, and I was only like 33. That fourth home that I myself owned and renovated and lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was used to that. And I said, boy, my next place is going to be even better. And I stopped and I thought about for a second. I was like, wait, this is perverted. Like, I really, the idea that I need more than this
Right.
just so I can prove myself and get more acceptance from people.
Right.
Um, it became really clear to me that something was wrong. That I had that wasn't I needed to find a different solution than further success,
Yeah.
and both in terms of what I wanted to focus my career on, and that self-love piece.
Yeah.
So on the self-love piece, that's what really started it. One of the things that started the journey for me of a spiritual journey, and doing a lot more inner work. And on the career side, I wanted something to work for still, and I wanted to keep working. And so that's when it really came to me that I wanted to do work that had a lot more purpose. And it
Yeah.
wasn't just about doing more projects, making more money, building bigger buildings, but actually having a positive impact.
Yeah.
And it was at that time in my life, it spoke to both. my passion, my heart, or wanting to do something good, like just from a very deep place, as well as still that insecurity element of like, well, this is how I can actually differentiate myself and feel better about myself. And so that was part of the journey too, and which was, again, that was actually in a way another good motivator towards motivating me to do something that was more positive than just make money for myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So the twin motivation for doing good in the world of A, wanting to do good in the world, and B, like a semi-selfish motivation of like wanting to feel good about yourself, which is like selfish in all the right ways. Eh?
Yeah.
Um, what was um what was the turning point? Into self-love? Like, what did that first foray into looking for a different source of self acceptance look like? How did how did you start to realize like, okay, I think it's like self-love that I need to work on?
Yeah, there are a couple of, I'd say there are two. I touched on the first point. There's two other things that I think were pivotal for me. The first was I had suffered from severe chronic pain for 10 years, and doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with me. They would give me these explanations that didn't totally make sense. I had three surgeries that now I realize were unnecessary. And and I really suffered a lot of physical pain. And then I read a book. It was called The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno, and that book cured me by reading it. And I was so intrigued, and it's anybody who suffers from chronic pain, I recommend you read it. Um, but just to summarize, the pains that many of us feel that we can't shake or get rid of are not because of structural abnormalities in our body, but they're due to psychosomatic reasons. They're also not in our head, but they manifest in the brain because they're preventing unconscious thoughts from coming up into the conscious, because some of those unconscious thoughts particularly from our childhood, are very painful that we don't want to feel.
Hmm.
So I'm really summarizing the theory behind this. But for me, I got better from just reading the book. And that's
Hmm.
what happens to most people who are able to understand the concept. It doesn't require them to understand what those unconscious pain, even where it comes from.
Yeah.
But I guess as a curious person, even though I wasn't better, I wanted to figure out what was going on with me.
Hmm.
And so I started working with a psychotherapist that was referred by Dr. Sarno, who focuses on working with people who suffer from or previously suffered from chronic pain.
Hmm.
And that starting the process of psychotherapy, that was never something that was, um, uh, part of my childhood, or that I'd really been exposed to. It was kind of like a foreign thing.
Hmm.
Therapy is a lot. This was this was in like 2013, and therapy has gotten. I'm sorry, this is like 2006. Therapy's much more commonplace today than it was then.
Yeah.
Um, so that really taught me a lot about myself. And also, right around the same time, I took a trip to India with my then girlfriend. And while I was there, I got sick. And I thought I was just having another psychosomatic episode. And then she she was a lot more she had been on a spiritual path for a little while, and I was just starting mine, and she had some things to teach me. And she mentioned something about my behavior that she felt was causing me to feel stressed and causing me to get sick. And and it was just as the fever was coming on. A lot of people get sick in India,
Yeah.
and we'd been there for several weeks, and it had been such a it was the most interesting place I'd ever visited in my life. And it's just so overwhelming. And the spiritual energy there is just incredible.
Huh.
And the things that we saw and witnessed and the poverty as well. It just you can't like help but having a deep experience when you're in India. At
Uh-huh.
least that's the way it felt for me.
Wow.
So I was in this place and she really like called me out on something. And she called me out just as I was getting sick. And so my defenses were down. And at that point in my life, I had never like really cried since I was like a kid.
Uh-huh.
And uh, and and because of all those factors coming together, I started crying. And I just I like I let out, really like a decade worth
Wow.
of pain and emotion and it was just it was painful and cathartic at the same time. And I just were getting all of these memories that I had forgotten about were coming back. And so that was the stuff that was in my unconscious.
Yeah.
And I just like kept it going. Like I knew I just had the sensibility I was doing something good for myself. And she, God bless her, just sat there and was there for me and didn't recognize that she didn't need to say anything or do anything, but just to be there with me. And I probably just was sobbing for more than an hour. And strangely, if not strange, she's a photographer, and she did actually take pictures of me while I was crying. And
Opportunistic.
I'm grateful actually to have them
Yeah.
as a memory of it.
Yeah,
But
man.
that was, I guess, the other kind of seminal experience that started a spiritual journey. And it felt like the first, like, truly spiritual experience I'd ever had. I felt like maybe I had someone when I was a really little boy, but as an adult, like that was the first thing that happened to me that kind of got me into just another realm of being.
Yeah. Um, is it too personal to ask you what she called you out on?
You know, I actually don't remember that well.
Oh, wow.
It's not too personal. It's not that I wouldn't mind sharing it. It wasn't like I had done something bad with her or anything like that. It was just more about, yeah, I don't recall. And
That's
it
interesting in and itself,
actually,
right? That it was
yeah, I mean,
not
maybe I
necessarily
have it
anything.
written in a journal somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Um, so what else has been your most effective methodology for cultivating self-love? Because I think that self-love, my thesis for this business love stories thing is that like self-love is step one, I think. To be able to create from love, we first need to get to that place of self-love. Um,
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's not been one thing for me. For me, it's been a very gradual process. I think therapy helped a lot. I have a small library of self-help books that really taught me a lot about it. Um, just having different practices like journaling and yoga and meditation um, has helped a lot as well. Doing, a decent amount of plant medicine ceremonies
mhm.
certainly has helped with it. I think, it's hard. I've only had one mind and body, so I can't compare myself to anyone. I don't have a subset to compare it to. I think a lot of people naturally start to cultivate it as they get older. There's this idea of like, give less fucks as you get older. And I think that
Yeah,
a lot of that um, revolves around self-love.
yeah,
I wish I could have learned it earlier. I wish there's the type of thing that,
yeah. I should
that
teach it
gets
at schools.
taught in school.
Yeah,
But
get a master's in that.
yeah, but so yeah, for me, it was a lot. It was a collection of things.
Yeah. Was there a component of like self-forgiveness? And I ask that because I think that's where I'm at in my journey with self-love is that yeah, that that's sort of front and center for me now is sort of forgiving myself for not being where I thought I might be at this stage of my life, perhaps, or something like that. And in some ways, I think I'm much further. Even having that awareness probably puts me further on the spiritual trajectory than I even had awareness I would need to get to prior. But I guess like um, I think in terms of like outward career success, I think I'm not forgiving. I need to work through forgiveness of not being like what I had in mind for that. My personal background, I had a small exit when I was 31 and enough to not retire forever, but enough to kind of, you know, pump the brakes for a couple of years and found myself sitting on the beach in Bali with a cocktail in hand, looking out on a beautiful sunset, kind of like anticipating the sense of elation, very similar to I think your story of kind of like, if I achieve this, then I'll be happy. Um, and kind of reaching that cognitive that milestone. And A, it wasn't enough to retire forever. So, but B, having enough to kind of like realize, okay, well, having a couple extra zeros in my bank account hasn't changed my brain chemistry. And in fact, it's left me with a new set of problems. Like discovering that I'd inadvertently conflated quite a bit of my identity with, you know, who I am, with what I do, and having this kind of hot shot, you know, 20 something entrepreneur sort of identity that had been kind of washed away, and then my purpose, my reason for getting out of bed in the morning being gone. And so that for me precipitated like a long dark night of the soul that really lasted throughout my 30s, and is really sort of coming to fruition now with this business love stories concept. Um, uh, so I guess I am further along spiritually than I might have even previously had awareness that I would want to be, because I guess you've got, you know, until you develop that spiritual awareness, I guess you have a blind spot to it of like how important that is. But in the meantime, over the last 10 years, my career has sort of just like, you know, kind of gone pretty sideways while I sort of tried to figure out like what's my ultimate true path. And then the coming together of being able to integrate love into business and use some of my other skills and my curiosity in particular of, to be able to um, wrap that into this venture feels very gratifying. But I think the question, yeah, so I was started off by talking about like self-forgiveness. Was there a component of self-forgiveness in your self-love journey as well?
Yeah, there was some of it. I definitely did work with my therapist around revisiting traumatic childhood experiences
Yeah,
that I guess I was blaming myself for them.
yeah,
And so that was certainly helpful. And it's not like you do it once and then, okay, that's done. I mean, you know, that's things that you have to revisit a little bit. And I've
yeah,
even over the years have revisited some of those things again and or they've come to me in ceremony. And that's a way, you know, a message that there's still a little more work that needs to be done there. So I think there, for me, yeah, there was certainly some of that of of forgiveness. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Other than in ceremony, the work that you did with like a psychiatrist and whatnot, was there any particular modality that was most effective for addressing those earlier uh, childhood traumas? Just talking it through, or like meditative kind of
Yeah,
things, or
I think I did some exercises of writing letters to the younger version
oh
of
yeah, that's
me.
a good one. Yeah, yeah,
I have a good friend in Costa Rica, Dave Wheel, who's an expert with doing what's called parts work. And
oh
I
yeah,
did a session with him actually this year
yeah,
where, so in a way, you know, I'm still doing it. In a way, it was a good refresher
yeah,
of like visiting the young little boy, Matthew,
yeah,
and having a conversation with him.
yeah,
Um, so, um, uh, so yeah, there's been a, you know, it's not a one-time thing. I think it, you know, you just continue to make progress. And
yeah,
I feel like, yeah, I mean, we all, it's not like I've arrived in some place and I have no more insecurity.
mm,
I think there's a part of those insecurities, perhaps, and I mean, unless we really are, you know, become Tibetan monks and spend all of our time working on it, there's a part of that insecurity that probably stays with us forever. But I feel like a completely different person
yeah,
now than I did then.
mm,
And I try not to take it for granted, you know, like I don't. like I used to get really uncomfortable in social situations, and I don't really do that anymore. And like, and so I forget about that, and I might like be going somewhere and be like, maybe I'm just a little uncomfortable or a little nervous about something. And I have this memory of like, wow, I used to feel this way all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
this was just my norm. And like now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, maybe once a year it'll happen or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so, yeah, it's good to just, have appreciation for the ways that we've grown.
For sure. Let me ask you this question. So when I sold my business, I was 31 and came back, and at that time, I had all the accumulated rubble from the old office, from all the files and surplus computers and stuff, kind of like piled up in my garage, and I'd put a desk there, and so I was sort of like sitting at this desk and surfing the net, looking around YouTube, trying to find inspiration, like what the hell am I going to do with my life? And one of the great pieces that I watched was Steve Jobs' commencement speech that he did, I think, at Stanford, which you might have seen. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the quotes from that speech, which jumped out at me then, and I think was like a guidepost all the way from then until now, is the following, where he says, "The only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work, and the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it." So my question is, like, I'm trying to navigate and grapple with like um the ex the well, first of all, like, do you agree with that sentiment?
Yes. And I think with the caveat, I think no matter what your job is, I don't know if it's possible that you're always going to enjoy it all the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we still have to do our taxes, and even if you have someone else
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some things that are just not,
Yeah.
where if
Less
you have
enjoyable than others.
someone important that works for you that quits, that's, like that, which can happen, like,
Yeah.
so anyway, but I do overall agree with that from a big picture standpoint.
Yeah. So I'm trying to discern and differentiate then between like the lowercase L loving your work, like you love the work, um, versus the uppercase L love work, like as a motivation for work, like to be motivated by love. And by that, I guess I mean the love that another quote from that I have on my website that Martin Luther King says when he says, "I speak of love, I'm not speaking of that sentimental and weak response. I'm not speaking of the force which is just emotional bosh. I'm speaking of that force which all of the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is somehow the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality." So, like, and he talks about agape, which is the specific type of love that the Greeks had the word agape for, this kind of universal love, a kind of a spiritual love, I guess, more than a romantic or a friendship sort of love, but like a kind of a spiritual oneness kind of love, which I would call the kind of capital letter love. It's a holy kind of a spiritual sort of thing. Um, so when Steve Jobs talks about loving what you do you think there's a difference between simply loving what you do and being motivated by this kind of love in your endeavors?
Yes. Yeah. I think you have um, people that have one of those things and not both.
Right.
For instance, someone that might work for a not-for-profit organization that's poorly run. They might have actually the capital L love,
Yeah.
but the day-to-day might be unpleasant.
Yeah.
Or um, or I don't know, like I have a friend who's an investment banker. I think he genuinely enjoys his job, the challenge of it with the lowercase L, but I don't think he has the uppercase L.
Right.
Um, I think for me, I do feel that I have both. I like the work that I do. I love the challenge, the creative aspect of it. I'm meeting great people all the time. We have a great team. Um, but I also, I guess more importantly, I get a sense of value from it. And I think that's what you're referring to as the uppercase love. And the way I look at what's going on in the world today, and this is where I break from, I'll say something that maybe some people who listen to you might object to. Um, I think there's a sense in the entrepreneurial and founder community that all progress and innovation is good. This idea of we're creating value and
Yeah.
we're moving things forward, and I think we as a society have a little bit of a warped sense of how we're measuring progress and how we're
Yeah.
measuring value. Because what I'm seeing is there's more wealth in out there than there's ever existed before.
Yeah.
And whether, the particularly in rich countries, and the amount that's been created just in the last 10 years is staggering. So it's obviously not being spread among everybody, but as a whole, as a society, we're wealthier than we've ever been. Yet we have the highest levels of loneliness and depression, of suicide, of obesity, of conflict. We're becoming more divisive among each other than we've ever been before.
Mm.
And we have all of these entrepreneurs and business people out there saying like I'm changing the world. Well, are you changing the world for the better? I know the world is changing; it's changing very fast, but are you actually changing it for the better?
Yeah.
And I'm not, I can't say that everything we do is every single thing has a positive benefit, but I truly believe that the work that we're doing with Shift Esperanza, with Shift as a living concept, is in a very small way, is having a positive impact on the world, in terms of the environmental element, and more importantly, the people, of bringing people together that are lonely, that are suffering, that are feeling ungrounded, that don't have people they can confide in, and humans are less happy today than they used to be, and
Mm.
so I do believe that we're doing something to help solve that, and again, in a very small way. Um, and for me, I guess that's what the capital L is. That's what allows me to work really hard at it, and for it not to feel like work, but to feel like a purpose, to feel like what I'm called from a higher place to do.
Hmm.
And at some point, it was a coach of mine said to me, "You didn't choose this work chose you."
Yes.
And I guess it was like, I guess lucky me, because
That thumbs up.
I mean
It's a
that,
good job.
truly and also facetiously, because it's been hard. It's been a lot of work,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
um, yeah, for me, that's where it comes from.
Yeah. So my inkling is that there's a lot of folks out there who have and I think it can go both ways, as you pointed out. Like someone might work for a nonprofit, they have the capital letter L, but they don't have the lowercase. Um, my suspicion is that in the entrepreneurial space, it's probably more often the other way around, where they have the lowercase L and they don't have the uppercase. I think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, this is what I was sort of thinking when you were telling me about the stage in your career where you were creating this beautiful penthouse and you poured your creativity into it, and it was, probably very um, rewarding, even creatively, and I'm sure a big part of you would have been proud of it at that time, and yet the part of you that wondered, is there something that's missing? I think might have been the lowercase L, sorry, the uppercase L, at that time. Is that correct, do you think?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Well, I think I had a little bit of, I guess, a medium case L, in that, like I was doing
You were, oh, sorry, yeah, you were already incorporating aspects of the
Sustainability
sustainability and whatnot. Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
but I was also kind of fooling myself a little bit. And what I was really doing, looking back on it now, is I was being less bad.
Right.
And but development in general is bad. And I was being less bad, which is, it's better to be less bad.
That's progress.
But I do feel that the goal of doing our shift projects is to be carbon negative.
Yeah,
So that's and the word regenerative is being thrown around a lot these days and being misused in many cases to talk about real estate and other things. And, and there's not, I've researched it a lot. There's not any like clear definition, but my definition is that you're leaving a piece of land, the people that live there, and the surrounding community and the overall environment. You're leaving all four of those things better than when you started with the piece of land.
yeah,
And that's my definition of regenerative.
yeah,
And I believe we're doing that.
yeah. So I want to hear more about that. But one more question. You might think I'm obsessing on on these upper and lowercase L's, but is there one turning point or one inflection point, one moment or one aha kind of like breakthrough that unveiled or made accessible to you the uppercase L, uh, and how you could serve that love, in this new venture? Like, when did the dots really connect, I guess, and you thought, this is it, or this is what I'm called to do, and this is how I can use all my experience and chart the path forward. Because I'm sort of thinking, coming back to what I said previously, that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have the lower case, but they lack the larger case. And I feel like my work that I'm most passionate about trying to help people with is get them to where you are now with the uppercase L unlocked, and utilizing all of their experiences and resources in service of the greater
Yeah.
mission that is their legacy play, as well as serving the uppercase L, or love for a better, or whatever they hold sacred, that is genuinely making the world a better place.
Yeah. I think um, first I'll make a comment. I think there's some sense of dissonance in as it relates to the uppercase L, that people aren't willing to admit to themselves that people are creating purpose where it doesn't truly exist.
Mm,
And you've seen that with a lot of the big tech companies, and particularly when they're founding. I mean, um, in terms of some of the things they stood for versus what they're doing today.
right.
And I think whether you're a founder or you're one of hundreds of thousands of employees that are working at some of these companies, it's I think people have a hard time admitting that they actually might be part of the problem. And
Yeah.
and um, that's a tough thing to come to terms with. And again, um, I'm not saying that. I hope that doesn't come across as judgmental. What I hope it comes across as inspiring people to really think about, like, how is we put so much of our time and energy into our work, and what is our work contributing?
Hmm.
And if people can all think a little differently about that, um, about not just innovation, not just creating value, not just making money, but what their work actually means to humanity or to the planet.
Yeah.
I think once people sort of stop, or have a more honest conversation with themselves about it, that's a big step forward for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of your question, sorry, what was your question again?
Yeah, well, I guess the
Went on a
question was
tangent.
like, how did you make that leap? Such in a way that I'm scratching around to find if there's anything that
Yeah.
I can take from you and like pass on to others that I might have the Pleasure speaking with.
Yeah, the leap to focusing on the capital L.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess it was just for me personally, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't, particularly in New York real estate,
That's
it's a
interesting.
dirty business.
Yeah.
And and it took a lot out of me, and I didn't like the person I was, or I should say the person I was really forced to be if I wanted to succeed at it. And
Yeah.
and so there was a sense of like, if I'm acting more principled and more integrity than the people that I'm interfacing with, I'm actually at a disadvantage.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
wild.
took me a while to admit that too, because I actually had this belief that, like, reputations go long term,
Yeah.
and yes, there are some. I have, like, I have an investor in Shift that has been with me for 20 years because of my reputation. So there are good things that came of it, but I couldn't help but feeling um, that there is an element, at least, of New York real estate, of nice guys finish last. And so I didn't want
That's a
to,
tough
it's
place
like,
to
why do I
be.
want to, like, work at a disadvantage? Why do
Yeah.
I want to be disadvantaged for doing what I feel is the right thing? Um, and I'm not enjoying the people I'm working with. And I feel like I can't really be me of who I truly am.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's the other element of the capital L, is I think when you find the capital L, you can just be who you are. So
Yeah.
I had I had, like, kind of, sort of two lives in a way. I mean, I had my me as a person and the way I was with my friends and what I did for fun and things like that. And then I had the work me, where,
Put on a mask,
I put on, yeah,
put on the
literally
gloves or
put
take
on a
them off, as
suit,
you said.
and and I had a moment in Nassau. I was closing a loan with, and the lender is a friend of ours, our lender for Shift, and a friend of mine, and a former mentor. And I was walking over to his lawyer's office, which is across the street from my office, and I was wearing a tank top and flip flops to
Yeah.
close a loan.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to dress up. I didn't have to, I was just, I was comfortable, and I made a joke with him about that, about,
Yeah.
like, wow, this is so different than my experience of being in New York and in a room full of lawyers, and nobody, if you smile, you're weak. And, it's just sort of
Wow.
everybody's, and everybody's fighting and arguing about terms and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I just had a moment of really appreciating, like, wow, this is a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I actually think the projects that we're doing in Costa Rica are more profitable and
That's
than I could ever do if I stayed doing projects in New York.
yeah.
So it's not
The
like
irony, huh?
sacrificing and losing out.
Yeah. Wow.
It's less
Fantastic.
competitive.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm so happy for you that that you've arrived in this place, and obviously you've still got a lot of work ahead of you, and in this important mission. But what a feeling to at least to have got to this place.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a lot of work. I don't want to just say, like, oh, it was easy. I just decided I was going to. It's actually been a huge transition, all of this stuff. And but as I sit here today, I have an incredible sense of excitement about the future, of, like, of now I've, like, put in the work. I've worked on myself. I've transitioned my business. To wind down an office in New York was a lot of work. To open one in Costa Rica was a lot of work. But now it is set up and having a scalable model, which I believe has a very positive impact and is profitable. And we have a great, finally have a great team behind it that wants to run with it.
Yeah.
Um, Now it's really exciting, but I'd be lying if I said it was easy to get to this point in doing that transition. It's been very challenging for me, for our family, a lot of hours and a lot of things to figure out along the way, but
No,
certainly no regrets.
no doubt. And so the mission for Shift, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's bringing people together who need community is one of the
Yeah,
primary aspects. I think in the reforestation, perhaps. Do you want to speak into
yeah,
those aspects a
there's sort
little?
of two main pillars. The first is people, and the second is planet. And the people piece is to bring people together who have shared values, that want to live in a community setting, and that when they have those shared values, they really create very deep and strong bonds, and it has a real synergistic impact on their lives and the lives of the people around them.
Yeah.
The environmental piece is really around our mandate is we take farmland that had previously been forest and had been deforested, and someone else committed the sins already, and we're there to heal it, to regenerate the land. And so we have a reforestation, an agroforestry program, food forest and reforestation program planned around a residential master plan housing development. Combined with the way we operate, everything from the way we build and the materials that we use, and using local and sustainable materials, to using on-site power generation, primarily solar, to water management. We reuse our water multiple times, and the way the community operates, and things like shared resources and reducing wastes. And when you put it all together, and then there's also the third piece is actually giving back to the community. So we pledge 10% of the profits on all of our projects to charities within the local community. And we put in a great deal of effort to also assimilate with the local community. We offer discounts to Costa Ricans who want to live that shift, because we don't want to be just a project of a bunch of foreigners that are living in somebody else's land. So those are kind of the three main pillars, and putting all together, it's our scalable model of what we believe is a way. We need housing, like everybody needs a place to live, and it's just a question of how you plan, design, and build it. And so this is our model for a way of creating needed housing in a way that has a positive impact on people, planet, and the local community as well.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And so you've got this one project at the moment in Costa Rica, and then your larger vision is to kind of extrapolate the model into other countries around the world.
Yeah, I mean, first there's Costa Rica. We believe a great market beyond where we are in Nosara, but in other places within Costa Rica. But then the other expansion would be first within Central America, because it's close and familiar. But yeah, we have created a scalable model, and the first one is certainly the 0 to 1. It's the hardest, and then after that, we feel that it'll be far easier to do other projects and to have a bigger impact and have really a system in place, and that there's real, also from a business standpoint, economies of scale, as well as when we become more of a known brand more globally.
For sure. Awesome. Well, coming to the top of the hour, so I just want to be respectful of your time. If people are interested and want to get in touch and find out more about collaborating or buying in, or what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, shiftliving.com or shiftesperanza.com. Our Instagram is at Shift Esperanza. So yeah, but we have lots of info on our website, and if someone wants to, they can register for our newsletter, or we can talk to us about if they're interested in joining our community. We'd love to hear from your listeners.
Fantastic. Well, Matthew, thanks again so much. Really appreciate the time and the insights. I'll be re-listening and pulling out the gems, because there's as much about my own personal growth as the growth that I hope to be able to help facilitate in listeners. So thank you for being a part of that.
Yeah, and I would just want to say you're doing great. So I just want to give you that reminder for today. So you're really doing some amazing work in the world. So don't forget it. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Take care, Chris.